Sorry for the interruption. So there is a network problem for Rachel, Dr. Rachel Jha.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yeah, now it's audible.
Okay. Well, at times we have to go through identity crisis. We come out at times victorious.
Ma'am,
Cleverly, yes.
your voice is breaking, ma'am.
Okay. V.S. Nepal is a meticulous artist, aware of the different strands of personality. And Nepal has cleverly designed characters to his works in a very schematic manner, characters which suit the different strands of personality. He has very cleverly done that. But I personally believe that V.S. Nepal has achieved success in fine characterization where personalities or different types of personalities emerge through
Ma'am? Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Sorry participants for the disturbances. Because of the network problem, she may not able to present and lecture, but she's getting ready. So please be patient. Sorry for the disturbance. Run.
Can you all hear me now, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. I think you would have heard me only till the slide which shows the video. Were you able to hear me after that?
No, ma'am. After that, we can't able to hear you.
Okay. Nepal is regarded as a pillar of Britain's cultural establishment, yet has become a symbol of moral ruthlessness. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Normally expresses his ruthlessness through the character of Mohan Biswas, who finally finds rest in his own house in Sikkim Street. The feeling of alienation and isolation which immigrants experienced in the fields and lands are powerfully portrayed. Thus, a tool, V.S. Nepal presents the plight of indentured laborers. Who are these indentured Indian laborers? Indentured laborers are laborers who borrow money or loan even to travel to their fields or lands. Nepal presents a cultural displacement and identity crisis to Mohan Biswas' struggle. He is symbolically representative of the unhoused and the other for the world. Unhoused. Mohan Biswas is unhoused. His whole struggle is to own a house. the homelessness, identity crisis, and existence of an immigrant dissected through the various sequences in Biswa's life. Naipaul's genius is shown in how dissection of his longing for a home happens. V.S. Naipaul is regarded as a hub of Indian identity. He blends myth and reality, traditionalism and modernism, Hinduism and multiculturalism to give full vent to emotions, to chisel his characters with an identity. And the truth with personal identity is portrayed through a series of homes where Mohan Biswas takes shelter, and that symbolizes Mohan Biswas's personality. Desire to have a home is intense for Mohan Biswas, and he believes that the day he owns a house, he will have an identity of his own. The house is a central symbol for freedom from oppression, humiliation, and a representation of desire for self-fulfillment. Yes, house is symbolic of security, of identity, an archetypal symbol which connotes stability and permanence. Mohan Biswas continually meets obstacles and failures in his endeavors, and his life has been so dramatic and difficult right from the birth. The central protagonist, Mohan Biswas, has had a very inauspicious birth, born at midnight. Like Salman Rushdie's character, Midnight's Children, Mohan Biswas was also born at midnight, and in a wrong way, with an extra finger, his sixth finger. And birth prophecy of midwife haunts him all throughout his life. Whatever you do, this boy will eat up his own mother and father. He is forbidden from trees and waters. Unfortunately, he becomes the cause of his father's death. He was forbidden from trees and water. Unfortunately, to play prank, he seemed to be hiding, and when he was hiding, his father dived into a pool of water to the river to see if the boy was drowned, and finally, father gets drowned. Knowingly or unknowingly, Mohan Biswas has been the cause for his father's death. And here unfolds tale of poverty. V.S. Naipaul gives a grim picture of penniless childhood. After his father's death, Mohan Biswas and his family had to live with wealthy relatives. Mohan Biswas' two brothers were sent to a distant relative to work in the heart of the sugar estates. Dehuti, his sister, was taken by his mother's sister, Aunt Tara, who is financially very sound, and Dehuti was only treated as a servant. The youngest, Mohan Biswas, lived with his mother at Pagods. His childhood has been a continual struggle. He would have longed. It's not that he would have longed. He longed to have a family of his own, where his siblings, his parents all lived together. Unfortunately, his family was shattered, and each had to live in different homes. Mohan Biswas was sent to be trained as a Pandit at Jairam's. Roots were in the Hindu culture, and it is infused in the blood. Tailed into being initiated into priesthood due to the orthodoxy of Pandit Jairam, he was sent to Pandit Jairam to be trained as a priest, but the rigid behavior of Pandit Jairam led to expulsion of Mohan Biswas from his home. He was dismissed for defiling a sacred flower tree. Mohan Biswas joined a rum shop of his relative Ajodha. But Ajodha's brother, Bandit, had schematic plans. Mohan Biswas was disqualified by the swindling nature of Bandit, who believes Biswas was spying for his brother Ajodha. Accused wrongly of theft, Biswas left the employment once for all. He decided that he should have a job of his own. Having a job could make him build a house of his own. I'm going to get a job on my own, and I'm going to get my house too, proclaimed Mohan Biswas. He adopted painting as his livelihood. The prophecy of his life haunts him like an evil spirit and drags him towards wilderness to Hanuman house of Mrs. Tulasi. He entered the world of Mrs. Tulasi, or Tulasi's rather, unaware that his romantic ego would be crushed by the hierarchical order that did not allow the growth or expression of an individuality. He finds himself in situations that made him powerless. He longed for a house, a symbol of his ability to realize his identity and gain personal power. As a sign painter, Biswas makes an entry to Hanuman house. Structure of the house is symbolic of an imprisonment. He develops an attraction towards Shama, daughter of Mrs. Tulasi. Mrs. Tulasi runs the family. She's a dominant character, a powerful character in the work. Much to the contrary, he wanted Shema. Much to the contrary, he was welcomed to the house as a son-in-law. Quite surprising that he was welcomed. Hanuman House is a colonial hegemonic structure. The writer presents it as an alien white fortress, symbolic of European colonial power. Mrs. Tulasi, as told, is a powerful, dominant lady, and the household did not treat sons-in-laws with respect and expected them to work day and night. Instead of daughters getting married and sent to another house, they had strange custom of welcoming sons-in-law to their house. Mrs. Tulasi owned Rose Room, and her two sons, Shekhar and Awad, the Blue Room, whereas all others, it is a kind of dormitory which Mohan Biswas couldn't tolerate. Biswas rebels on psychic emasculation. Mrs. Tulasi becomes an old cow, the old queen. Seth becomes big boss, and Tulasi sons were young gods. The Tulasi establishment gives an oppressive environment, and Biswas suffers from lack of self-integration. They had the custom of having tea with the biscuits. Biscuits would be in huge tin. Well, Mohan Biswas couldn't tolerate any of their customs. He wanted to break free from Hanuman house. Maybe other sons-in-law felt and wished, but they kept quiet. Mohan Biswas rebelled. Once for all, he wanted to leave the Hanuman house and he left. Mrs. Tulasi gave him the honor of having a shop at the Chase, a smelly-infested shop. There was a housewarming party, and whole of Tulasi household visited the Chase. In fact, they stayed there. This made Mohan Biswas suffocate and alienated. He was disgusted. He moved to the Green Way. Chase was spacious. The Green Way gave him a sense of freedom. With none to bother from Tulasi house or Hanuman house, he brought freedom. The Chase was spacious, but Greenvale was a single shabby room with a family. The house collapsed in heavy rain. This created havoc, mental breakdown for Mohan Biswas. And to add injury, the small shack built in Vale was burned down by the laborers. This led to kind of neurosis. He was taken to the Hanuman house immediately for medical care. Once revived, he went to the Short Hills. This was quest to have a house becomes neurotic. That proves to be a failure both as a husband and a father. Mohan Biswas is an individual and an archetypal figure. Well, the turning point was when Tulasi faced setback in business and they moved to Port of Spain. They lived at the Tulasi house in the Port of Spain. This was his intention to own a house comes out of humiliation where even his sons started disrespecting him. And in his bid to protect the family, his desire to have his own grew stronger. He managed to get a loan from Ajodha and buys a house at the Sikkim Street. Biswas declares many flaws for his house, but the sense of satisfaction of owning a house is exhilarating. He applied for a loan and the loan was huge. He plunges an overwhelming debt as he buys an overpriced house. But house is symbolic of his personality, symbolic of his pride. Finally, he could achieve. Biswas finds a job at the Sentinel newspaper. His son Anand and Savi were brilliantly performing well in their studies, and this was the time when Biswas felt he could be contented, he could be at rest. Biswas suddenly suffered stroke and is hospitalized. He sacked from Sentinel following a period of illness. But Mohan Biswas dies on an ordinary day, and his death is reported in an ordinary manner at the Sentinel, adding pathos to death. Shema returns to the empty house with the children in the end. He thought of the house as his own. As a boy, he moved from one house of strangers to another. Maybe that is what which made him feel that he should have a house of his own. He felt he had lived nowhere but in the house of Tulasi's. And now, at the end, he found himself in his own house, on his own portion of the earth. But he was laid to rest. Biswas could achieve what he wanted from the Hanuman house to the Chase, to the Greenway, to the Short Hills, to the house of Tulasi's in Port Spain, and finally to the house at Sikkim Street. His journey has been pathetic. with his quest for identity. V.S. Naipaul gives an optimistic note that his character could achieve what he longed for. The second novel which I took was Half Alive, 2001. The world is now being shaken by forces much bigger than I could have imagined. V.S. Naipaul. Globalization and modernity. Emphasis is on individualism, self-development, and self-choice in a globalized society, which resulted in a transformation of individual identity. Globalization created complex interconnections across the world, the world as a single hub. But one's self-identity depends a lot on the emotional, cultural, and social stability of the individual. External factors affect a person's individuality. Personal identity is defined as a sense of self built up over time as the person pursues projects or goals which boosts confidence as well as rooted in relationships. Globalization has increased movements and border crossing. It is a great advantage. People will have to face the challenges of adapting not only to the local culture but also to the global society. It's multiculturalism that happens now. I just wanted to play a slide. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I hope you can hear. Can you all hear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am, but the audio for
It's
the
a bit low.
presentation is not here, ma'am. Your voice is only audible, but the presentation video is not here.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Just hold on. Presentation video. Ma'am, can you hear the sound of the
No.
video?
No.
Okay, maybe then I think after the work is done, just keep it. Okay, I'll continue with the work.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll play the video towards the end. We need not waste time.
Yes.
Yes, Half a Life. A beautiful title. All of us are leading half a life. Agony and dilemma as an immigrant is presented so beautifully in Half a Life. The story of Willie Somerset Chandran, an OT moving from India, England, and Africa. I'm sure the name Somerset would have struck you now. Willie Somerset Maugham, son of a half-rebel Brahmin father and a low-caste woman, in search of an identity. Quest for identity. Willie searched for his roots. Willie search for roots is the fulcrum of this work. Why is my middle name Somerset? Asked Willie to his father. And father explained to him, but Willie was ashamed of his middle name. The question forms the very essence of a person's existence. For Willie Somerset Chandran, his name is his destiny. His first name, Willie, which had a tinge of Christian element in it. Last name, a touch of Indianness. And Somerset, with no ancestry, with no background, Willie wondered why Somerset was attached to his name. Middle name was borrowed from the writer Somerset Maugham, who made fame with Razor's Edge at the time when Willie's father was pursuing his college education. The writer had visited his college, and father, in loving memory of the writer's visit, attached the name to his son's name, but it was a huge embarrassment for the son. Borrowing the name reminds us of Homi K. Baba's mimicry, where it is mere imitation, trying to adapt the colonized, trying to adapt to the ways and means of the colonizer. What does your father do? Asked one day his class teacher asked him one day, what does your father do? The boy was in the classroom. Willie Chandran got up. He was so ashamed that he couldn't give a proper answer. And his classmates started giggling. What does your father do? Invites mockery from all corners. Willie's father believed he had an imp of responsibility. So what he did was he discarded the offers from the establishment of Maharaja. Willie's father was a respectable person who was working with Maharaja, who was at the service of Maharaja. And Maharaja was so pleased with Willie's grandfather that promised that Willie's father could get married to to the college principal's daughter. But Willie's father felt he should have a responsibility, identity, and personality of his own. Inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's call, he left all his offers in air and married a Dalit woman. Willie's father married a low-caste woman, but whose very sight repelled him. Got appointed in the land tax department, swindled tax money to run the family, and finally he hid himself in the temple. But Willie always had a contempt for his father, who also suffered setbacks in identity. Willie is a victim and wanted to break free from the settled, shameful, passive life of his parents, half Brahmin and low-caste woman. V.S. Nepal presents tinge of Brahminism in all his works, most of his works. Willie's inherited identity crisis causes him to gravitate towards fantasy rather than cope with the strife of reality Willie was ever escaping. Willie is given better education and so was expected to perform well and so was expected to do well in life. He'll have better opportunities in life but distances himself from his parents. Willie moves to London, trips from bars to dinner parties to newspapers, offices. And he soon adopted the bohemian culture of 1950s. Well, he found sexual pleasure and attempted to emerge as a writer. Willie makes prayer friendship with Percy Cato, who also suffered from the shackles of identity crisis. He was more ashamed than Willie. The bohemian culture of Notting Hill as presented seeks to adapt to the culture in his bid to survive. He tried his best to adapt London culture. He sleeps with girls who are not his friends but the lovers of his friends. And Willie's tale has ever been a tale of incompleteness. He was a promising writer, but his ambition is thwarted. Anna, an admirer of his book, Living in London, a Portuguese
Sorry for disturbance, ma'am.
Yes.
Presentation is disconnected, ma'am, please.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And an admirer of his book.
Presentation is disconnected, ma'am. Presentation disconnected.
I didn't understand you. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we are hearing.
Okay. Did you miss out my presentation in any slide? Or I hope you can hear me now.
No, ma'am, your presentation is in another slide, another way, but it's not clear, it seems.
Okay. Anna, an admirer of his book, is an African living in London. Anna is an expatriate struggling to reconcile her identity. She is of mixed ancestry in a Portuguese colony in Africa, and Willie finds warmth in her company as she could accept him as a whole person in the shade struggle. So Willie finds comfort in the company of Anna. Anna was important to me because I depend on her for my idea of being a man. He had his own happiness. He felt a warmth in the company of Anna. There he could be his complete own. Upon reaching Africa, Willie becomes Norway man. This haunts him. There he becomes Anna's London man. At London, he was Willie Chandran. But at Africa, he's Anna's London man. Here he suffers loss of identity. I'm going to leave. I've given you 18 years. I can't give you any more, said Willie, and left Anna once for her. Willie moves to Berlin, where his sister Sarojini is settled. Exiles, both of them are exiles, living a half life. He accepts the fate and moves life peacefully. Nepal's characters accept the fate and move life peacefully. An eternal time in which every soul must go through to reach the shore. One has to accept the fate. One has to submit to the will of God and lead a life peacefully. Willie is halfway in his journey. To conclude, through the geographical imagination of his writing, Nepal creates a home for himself. He takes effort to resist the sense of security, insecurity, and uncertainty. Nepal has taken pains to resist the sense of insecurity. Nepal is an exiled daughter who's caught in between, right in between hope and hopelessness. He takes advantage of being an exile to create his own space, his own home, which is nowhere and everywhere. Our home is nowhere and everywhere. With this, I continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful presentation and wonderful lecture. And this is a question time. So, if anybody is having any doubt regarding this topic, feel free to ask the question, or else you can put it in the chat box. Any questions, dear participants? P.S. Naipaul is a wonderful writer and the works is also very wonderful. Is there any questions regarding this topic? Participants? No questions? Ma'am, all
Yes.
have given their comments about this presentation, ma'am. It's excellent and very well meaning discourse, excellent session, and a fascinating presentation, an insightful presentation, but no questions.
Thank you, ma'am. If I could play the slide, if we could play the video, I would be happy.
Yes, ma'am. Mama. Ma'am, will you please explain the video, ma'am? It's better you can explain this, ma'am. Ma'am, the participants are asking to explain the video. We can't hear you, ma'am. We can't hear you. No, ma'am, your mic. Yes. Now it's audible, ma'am.
Yeah. It's on globalization, ma'am, how different factors contribute to the growth of how the world has been globalized. I wish I could play the video. There is some problem with the audio of the video, I suppose. Or should I wind up, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. The participants are asking to give the presentation.
Now I hope you can hear.
Globalization is a widely discussed topic. It is therefore not all that easy to explain such a complicated term in simple words. Let's start from the beginning with the background to globalization. Advances in technology, such as mobile phones, aeroplanes, telephones, and the internet, have made the growth of transport and communication networks possible. Amongst other things, this means that people and countries can exchange information and goods more quickly and in a less complicated way. This process is called globalization. Globalization comes from globe and means the worldwide coming together of countries and nations. Let's look at an example. Companies used to manufacture products in their home countries, just like the companies Profi TV and Supercolor, who produce televisions in country A. Their products are in direct competition with each other, but both companies pay the same salaries and production costs. They have the same customers, use similar suppliers, and sell televisions at similar prices. In short, the same conditions apply to both companies. So far, so good. Due to technical, cultural, and economic developments that have come about through globalization, other companies which manufacture products under different conditions can now offer their products in country A too. That's why a company from country B can sell televisions here at a lower price because they were produced for this. The local firms Supercolor and Profi TV have to react to withstand the competition. And so the world grows closer together, and there is an active exchange of goods between countries. More affordable products are available for more people. However, not only does an exchange of products and economic goods take place, but also of services, knowledge, cultural goods, and even languages. All of these individual elements are closely linked and influence each other. But where there is light, there is also shadow. Because of globalization and this intense exchange of goods, people and the environment often suffer. If a company decides to move production to an economically disadvantaged country, people in industrialized countries lose their jobs. At the same time, job opportunities open up to many locals in the economically disadvantaged country. Many people in these countries work for very little money in comparison to those in industrialized countries. Therefore, they often remain poor, and more often than not, do not have sufficient insurance, social insurance, or health insurance cover. A further disadvantage of globalization is ecological problems such as climate change. The use of aeroplanes, ships, and lorries to transport goods over international borders is constantly on the increase. This causes more carbon dioxide to be released into the atmosphere, which, in turn, is the main cause of global warming. Even national environmental standards are ignored. This is a further cost factor in the worldwide international site competition, which should be kept as low as possible to be attractive for a company. There are therefore many sides to globalization, which affect almost all aspects of life, causing me to think that the chain of positive and negative effects will continue to grow further. What's important is to realize that globalization itself is neither good nor bad. It just depends how people deal with all the new possibilities in the future.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am?
Yes, that was a video on globalization.
Yes, very nice video, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you.
It speaks a lot about globalization. And there is a question raised by Arpan Samada. What is the impact of globalization on trade and employment?
So there is a huge impact on trade and employment. Employment opportunities have become more. Even trade has boosted up the economy. With globalization, undoubtedly the world has become a single market.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. And another question raised by Anbanahan Anbu. Ma'am, can you please elaborate the concept of mimicry in Homi Baba?
Yes, mimicry is a term coined by Homi K. Baba, which is in other way like what we say parodying. It's imitating actually. The colonized makes an attempt to imitate the colonizer. For example, the Indian trying to imitate the mannerism of Britishers, where we actually lose our own identity and culture when we mimic.
Yes, ma'am. And another one, Sunita asked that, speaking of Homi Baba's unholy concept, adjusting to the new Nova world, can we see the homelessness of Mr. Biswas as the same? Thus, he survived the homeless situation.
Yes, Mohan Biswa survives the homeless situation. He survives the homeless situation. The desire has been so intense. He was unhoused, though there were many houses to provide shelter. In every house, he felt that he never suited the house, or that was not his house. And the desire was so intense that finally he could achieve what he wanted.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And both participants got a lot from you. So thank you, ma'am. And now, ma'am, will you share the presentation by Dr. T.
Pardon?
From Nepal is going to present a paper on ELT. Will you please share the paper, ma'am?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So,
Ma'am, I didn't get you. I didn't get you, ma'am. I didn't get you.
Participant Dr. T. Chandrasekharan, Assistant Professor from Nagaland, is willing to present the paper on ELT. So there is paper presentation. So can you chat the paper presentation section?
When, ma'am? When?
Now only, ma'am. Just for 5 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay. Now it's time to hear from Dr. T. Chandrasekharan, Assistant Professor and Head of English Department, Zukaboto Government College, Nagaland, and he is going to present the paper on ELT. So now it's time to hear from Dr. T. Chandrasekharan. So,
good evening all. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. The title of the paper is Teaching and Learning English Language and Literature, Issues and Challenges. While we talk about teaching and learning of English language, it is mandatory in the 21st century that we should focus on developing communicative competence in the learner. To achieve this, language teaching should focus on language in its entirety, particularly the phonemic, phonetic, lexical, syntactic, and semantic levels, and also the level of appropriateness, and developing critical thinking skills in the learner. We know very well that language is not learned item by item, but in large chunks, that the learner has an inbuilt apparatus or mechanism that facilitates learning a language. When we think about the overall view of language, we can say that language is a system of communication, and it is the result of unified social action. It is acquired through an instinctive knowledge. It is a tool for communication. It constitutes linguistic and communicative competence, has an expressive function, and it is a means of cultural transmission, a means of national unity. But this language should be taught in context. Literature can serve as a context for teaching language, because literature provides effective intrinsic motivation to learn language. And literature provides discourse processing skills also. But the problem is the existing communicative language teaching approach aims at developing communicative competence. It focuses on discourse level and also on learner-centeredness, but it is ineffective because it follows a separationist attitude, because it separates usage, language usage, and its communicative use. The result is that learner attains only linguistic competence rather than communicative competence. And this paper identifies a unificationist approach to language teaching, where language usage and communicative use are focused on simultaneously. leading to the development of communicative competence in the learner. This approach, coupled with the integration of technology in language classrooms, will develop a native-like competence in the learner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So, ma'am, is there any question? Ma'am, you are not audible, ma'am. No, ma'am. You're muted. You are in mute mode, ma'am. No, not audible.
No, നിങ്ങൾ കത്തിപ്പോയി
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Now, to talk about Nagaland and English, how can we connect the Northeast with the rest of India in English language and competency?
When we
Sir?
talk,
Yes, sir. Yes.
when we talk about the English language, this is an associative language in the context of India. In Nagaland, there are so many tribal languages available. They are using that one. But the official language, as far as Nagaland is concerned, is English. So in that way, since the languages used by the Nagas are not intelligible to the rest of India, English only becomes a link language for the Nagas and also those belonging to the mainstream India. In that way, the language English becomes a connection, a link language, a kind of connecting language with the rest of the people in the mainstream India. I hope I have answered that.
Yes, sir. Beautifully.
Thank for your presentation, and it's now time to hear the vote of thanks by Ms. S. Diana Flora.
Parting is such a sweet sorrow. Warm greetings, everyone. I feel much elated in delivering the closing remarks of this third day of webinar series. Before expressing my gratitude, let me quote from T.S. Eliot. Quote, "What we call the beginning is often the end. The end is where we start from." Unquote. Let this end be a new beginning. As we have come close to the end of the program, I take this opportunity to thank everyone on behalf of the Department of English of Holy Cross Home Science College, Thoothukudi. First, I bow my heartful gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Rachel John, for having enlightened us with her insightful speech on personal identity and globalization through the works of V.S. Naipaul. Thank you so much, ma'am. Next, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all the academicians, research scholars to this third day webinar series. Once again, I thank everyone. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. So I personally I thank Dr. Rachel, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation and the thoughts that you have shared with us. So today is a wonderful day with you. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay. So with this, we can close the session and we will meet tomorrow at the same time with the same link. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye.
Close.